For survivors and families going through brain injury, the holiday season can be full of mixed emotions with joy and grief and overwhelm. So, today we are going to talk about navigating the holidays with brain injury, and I hope that this episode brings some encouragement to you.
There is always hope, and you are not alone.
Hi, I'm Cristabelle Braden, and this is my brain injury podcast, Hope Survives. Here we share information, education, and support for the brain injury community. This is an uplifting podcast to bring hope to your darkest days. As a survivor of traumatic brain injury and multiple concussions, I know what it's like to struggle to find hope. I don't want anyone to feel as alone as I did, and that's why I started my online community called Hope After Head Injury. This podcast is an extension of that, and I'd love to invite you to join along as we explore the realities of life with brain injury, with messages of encouragement, interviews with doctors and professionals, and survivor stories. No matter where you're at on your journey, there is always hope.
With a little hope, you can make it through today. With a little faith, someday you'll get through the pain. Just a little love is enough to light the way through your darkest night. Hope survives. Hope survives.
Hello, Hope Survives family. Thank you so much for being here and tuning in today. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. So glad that you are here and that you are listening. And I hope that this can be an encouragement to you as we're going to talk about the holidays with brain injury. So, brain injury can bring some mixed emotions in the season. There's, of course, the joy of Christmas, but sometimes that can feel like it's overshadowed by the grief of losing the life that you had before. I don't know where you are at on your journey. If you just had your brain injury, maybe this is your first holiday season navigating it with symptoms. And if you're going through that, I want to encourage you today. It's okay to be overwhelmed. It's okay to be sad. I used to struggle so much with being hard on myself or feeling like I should or shouldn't feel a type of way. And so, for those who are new to navigating brain injury, the first thing I want to do is give yourself grace and encourage you to give yourself permission to feel. And it's hard to say no to things. I know it is. And so, I just want to let you know and send you a hug. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm doing our hugs. We always do those on our Zoom support groups with people. We give our virtual hugs, and I want to give you a virtual hug because it's hard. And now maybe you've been living with your brain injury for a couple of years now, and the grief comes from thinking that it would have been different by now. Or you thought this year maybe it would have been better. Maybe you've been navigating your injury for a while and you are able to do more now, but there's still, everyone has some level of um, sadness, I think, with the holidays, especially families. Not all of us have intact families, and it can be complicated and confusing and weird and stressful. So, kind of wherever you're at on the spectrum, I just want to encourage you first and foremost. We're going to give ourselves grace this week, okay? Give yourself grace. Now, we're going to talk about two things. First, I think I want to go into, acknowledging the grief, and we'll maybe talk about some of that. I also want to give you some practical strategies for managing overstimulation with brain injury and things that I've learned through the years. I think I did a podcast episode like this a couple years back, but I felt like it was time to do another one. So one of the things that I was posting about on social media around Thanksgiving time was talking about how gratitude and grief can coexist. And I think with holidays, especially, that's something that we need to understand, that you can be grateful and thankful for what you have and acknowledge, like, thanks to the Lord for giving us the blessings we have. You can even have joy and fun while at the same time being like, this is really hard. And this is not how I pictured it. And this is not the path that I thought my life was going to take. This is not how I thought 2024 Christmas, or maybe you're listening to this next year or the following year, whenever you're listening to this episode, this is not how I thought this year would feel. So we have to recognize the loss of what was, or changes, maybe in some traditions that you had. Maybe your family has a huge, gigantic gathering, which if you do, I'm a little envious. I wish I had a family like that. But maybe your family has a big gathering with lots and lots of people, and you just you can't handle that. And it's too overwhelming and it's too overstimulating. Years ago, I used to have to put myself into a quiet room by myself, away from everyone. And my head would hurt. I'd have to sit in the dark and I would just cry by myself. I remember doing that before. And, there are certain, challenges. So maybe it's that you have to acknowledge that you can't necessarily interact the way you used to. Maybe it's also a matter of having to do something different and meeting with people one-on-one or in smaller groups. So it's not always, there's no one size fits all with this, but my encouragement to you is to let yourself kind of feel if things are different. It's okay to be sad about it. I just want to encourage you that it's okay to feel the sadness alongside the joy, that grief might surface. We had an episode a couple weeks back with Kelly Lang, and she talked a lot about grief, and she was talking about how even decades after her brain injury, there will be times that grief will just unexpectedly surface. And so maybe recognize that that might happen, but also being able to create a new tradition if there's something that you were not able to do before. Like, let's follow the example of a big group. Maybe you call your cousin and you meet one-on-one the best you can, and that's a special time that you get to have. You can honor your current abilities and where you're at, and also simplify things. Or if you need to skip things, that's okay. Maybe you used to cook this giant meal, and now with your brain injury symptoms, you're like, I don't know how I can manage that. Maybe you got to simplify it. And seeking support from loved ones, and being able to advocate for yourself and share with them, hey, I am struggling a bit this year. I might have to leave early. I might have a headache. But one of the best things you can do for yourself is to be honest with yourself and with others, with your loved ones, about your symptoms, and just realize that that is okay. It's okay to not be okay in a sense. So if it looks different this year, my encouragement is to give yourself that grace. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the practical overstimulations. So, and especially in the holidays with noise and lights and crowds and busy schedules, there's a lot going on. And so you might find yourself really overwhelmed or really overstimulated. You might experience more headaches, more fatigue, more irritability, more brain fog. And my first encouragement or practical tip, we're on to our practical tips here. My first practical tip for you, you might not like, but I got to say it, reduce the sugar. I know that Christmas is a time that we have more goodies and baked goods more readily available, and that's wonderful. But with a brain injury, just know that however many grams of sugar you put into your body, you're putting into your brain. And for me, sugar is a direct trigger for a headache. So I'll let myself have some, especially on Christmas. I'll be like, I'm not going to not have a Christmas cookie, gluten-free, but I'm not going to not have that, or whatever dessert my mom decides to make. But I just will know that the next day I'm probably going to have headaches, probably have brain fog, and also portion control. I know that that's also hard too, but realizing, okay, like I will have one dessert and maybe not go in for seconds just to honor your brain and where your brain is at. And that's a way that you can love you on your brain and serve your health better. Because sugar can make us irritable, it can cause headaches, it can make us more tired and just feel more brain foggy and more overwhelmed. So I know that that might be a hard one to hear, but there are a lot of great alternatives. I found I really like the Lily's brand, like chocolate chips. If you're making cookies or whatever, they're sweetened with stevia. There are other options out there. It might be a little late to find those at this point, but just be aware of what you're eating. Make sure you're staying hydrated. Make sure you're keeping your protein up. And then also just do the best that you can to plan ahead and, prioritize and pace yourself and build in times like rest. Also, noise canceling headphones or sunglasses or earplugs or a hat could be a helpful coping mechanism that you could have with you. Sometimes the little items like that, like if I put on the noise canceling headphones, suddenly like I'm able to kind of breathe a little bit better. And also being able to schedule times to rest and be able to know that it's okay. So, and I already mentioned that we need to advocate for ourselves with our family and friends, right? So let them know, hey, um, you know, I would be embarrassed doing this sometimes, but like if I went to a friend's house and the overhead light was really bothering my eyes, sometimes I'd ask them to turn it off and see if we could use the lamp, or if certain lights are bothering you, like it doesn't hurt to ask. And so you might be surprised that people might want to encourage you. Now, most of those tips were for survivors here, but for family members, I think a lot of it lines up similarly to acknowledge the grief of even where you're at, especially the way that the injury has affected your entire family. Your holidays might look different right now. And I just want to encourage you to take those deep breaths and pray and know that you're doing the best you can for your family, and it's okay. There is a lot of struggle that comes with having a brain injury, but there's also strength you maybe didn't know you had and resilience. And so we talked earlier about gratitude and grief, but I want to encourage you to make thankfulness and gratitude a conversation topic. Maybe go around with your family. This goes to all of us and say, what, are 3 things you can list today that you are thankful for? And have a conversation as a family. Talk about the things that you are thankful for. Maybe ask some silly questions like, what kind of things are your favorite Christmas movies, or what brings you joy? And being able to encourage each other. And most of all, focusing on, what really matters. On our brain injury Bible study Zoom group this past Saturday, we talked about hope in Emmanuel. And that Emmanuel means God with us. And we read John 1 and talked about how Jesus is the light that came into the world. And the light shines out the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Now, if you turn on a light, the darkness immediately goes away. It doesn't work the other way around. We have light switches. We don't have darkness switches, right? So Jesus being the light of the world, when you turn on the light, I have this lamp on. Let me just, for those of you watching on YouTube, when I turn off my lamp, now I have my window open, so there's still a little bit of light in here, but clearly, you can't see me as well. And when I turn on the lamp, immediately it's different. So the darkness can't even fight back against the light because the light always wins. If you shine a flashlight in the dark, the light will shine out the darkness. And so in John 1, when it says the darkness has not overcome it, that's, Jesus says I'm the light of the world. And so we can have hope in the light. And your season might feel really dark. You might feel really hopeless. And if you do, I understand that there are a lot of nuances. And one short podcast episode is not going to do anything to really, change the trajectory of your life. But I hope that today it gives you some strength and encouragement. In the Bible study Zoom group, in our brain injury group this past Saturday, I shared a little bit from my favorite hymn, Great is Thy Faithfulness. And we talked a little bit about accepting our brain injuries and how do we accept our symptoms while at the same time keeping hope. And for me, one of the ways that I do that is by remembering the line, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. I can acknowledge that today is really hard, and having a brain injury is not easy. And maybe I wish my life looked different. Definitely in past years, I have very, very, very much succumbed to that darkness. That's why I do this podcast, that's why I share all of this. But remembering that God is faithful and there is strength for today to be found in the Lord and bright hope for tomorrow. I can both acknowledge today is hard and have hope that tomorrow is better and that there is a light that shines through the darkness. So I hope you all have a blessed Christmas. Please reach out to us. We have a new email now, hi@hopesurvives.org, as we are starting the founding of our nonprofit. So if you reach out there, somebody will get back to you. We have a team now, which I'm very excited about, and we'll talk more in future episodes. But if you just need some encouragement or some hope, I want to hear from you. So you are not alone. And our Zoom groups are meeting in January. We have Hope After Head Injury Zoom support group and Brain Injury Bible Study Zoom support group. But whether you are, just had your injury or your year's out, I pray for peace and hope and joy and love and light over you this holiday season. And I hope that you have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we will see you back with a new podcast episode in the new year. Thank you so, so much for being here. You are not alone. There is hope. And I will see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Hope Survives podcast. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned, and would love for you to consider leaving us a rating or a review. Check out hopeafterheadinjury.com for more. I'll see you next time. And remember, there's always hope.